Shalom and welcome back to Israel with Aline. Today we are going to take a biblical journey together, but not to follow kings or prophets, rather to find the giant Goliath. We will look for clues in ancient manuscripts and archaeology to find the exact place where Goliath, the Philistine, was buried. So if you are ready, let's get started. We are now walking on a road that is thousands of years old, and this path connected the valley of Elah to Jerusalem. About 2,000 years ago, the Romans improved the path and built these stairs that we are walking on now, and they paved more parts of this road. And to show you how important this path is, it is still in use to this day.
Not the 2,000-year-old stairs, because they are preserved.
But you can see and hear as well. You can see that right here next to us runs the modern road. And if we go up it, we still end up in the same place. We arrive in Jerusalem. And why is this so important?
Because in the valley of Elah, one of the greatest battles in the Bible took place, the battle between David and the giant Goliath.
And as we know, David with his sling hits Goliath, who falls. David cuts off his head and takes it where? To the region of Jerusalem. And from there he presents it to King Saul. When the Philistines started coming toward David, he ran quickly toward the battle line to face him. Taking a stone from his pouch, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead so that it became embedded, and he fell face down on the ground. So David defeated the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. David ran and stood over him, and drawing the Philistine's sword, finished him off by cutting off his head with it. When the Philistines saw that their warrior was dead, they retreated and fled. David took the Philistine's head, brought it to Jerusalem, and kept the Philistines' weapons in his own tent. As soon as David returned after killing the Philistine, Abner brought him before Saul. David was still holding Goliath's head.
And because of that, there is a high probability that David chose to go up to Jerusalem by the easiest and most accessible route connecting the 2 points, which is exactly this path.
But if Goliath's head went exactly along this path, what happened to the rest of him, to his body? And that's what we're going to find out together now. One of the questions we need to answer is, how can we know if this 2,000-year-old Roman road really existed in David's time? And for that, we can read the studies published by the Israeli Ministry of Antiquities. From them, we can see that the Romans rarely invented new routes and roads. Instead, they used the routes already used by the local populations and merchants, which were often improvised trails. And then the Romans would pave them, widen them, and make them official. Besides, this is the route that makes the most topographical sense, since the valley of Elah is a natural corridor between the coastal plain and the mountains of Judah. If the route went another way, there would be many more valleys and hills with lots of ups and downs, which was far from ideal at that time, when everything was done either on foot or riding animals. And another clue is precisely the many archaeological sites from the time of David that are built along this route, like Khirbet, which is the biblical Sharaim, and it watched over and protected this road. And because of all this, we know that this road isn't 2,000 years old, but actually well over 3,000. We continued on our way until we arrived at this place, which is called Horvat Hanut, or Khirbet Hanut, which means the ruins of the resting place. And you can clearly see the ruins here behind us. But what are these ruins? They are the ruins of a church from the Byzantine period, which is the first Christian period in all of the Holy Land. The question is, what is the point of building a church here? In a place that, at least at first glance, seems to be in the middle of nowhere? Up here is the road we were on. It goes through here. But all around us, everywhere else, we only see trees, forest, nature. But yes, there is a very special reason why the church was built right here. And it was the Byzantines themselves who recorded the history of this place for us. More specifically, pilgrims to the Holy Land. For those who don't know, I'm a tour guide here in Israel. I accompany many pilgrims who come from different parts of the world to visit the churches and holy sites and learn about the history. And sometimes people think this is something modern, but it's not. Since the beginning of Christianity, there have already been Christians who go on pilgrimage, going up to the historic holy sites to visit them. And this was very common during the Byzantine period. And we have diaries from more than one Byzantine pilgrim who visited this church and told us about their visit. And what do they tell us? That right next to the road was the church. And next to the church, which we know today as Khirbet Hanut, was the tomb of Goliath. They already told us, even back then, about the tomb right here next to us, which they used to visit. And they didn't just visit. There was something else they used to do here, which we're also going to do at the end. And now together we will first visit the church and then the tomb of Goliath, just like the pilgrims of ancient times used to do. Let's go. This was the central part of the church, and look how beautiful it was. If we get closer, we can see that the entire floor was covered with a mosaic. And a mosaic made with the finest details depicting plants, animals, and fruits. And this mosaic was made with great effort and dedication. And it's also an expensive mosaic. One of the ways we can tell how costly an ancient mosaic is by the number of stone colors it has. And here we see several different colors, shades of gray, white, red. And so we can see that this was an expensive mosaic. And that's why it wasn't just an inn, a place for pilgrims to rest, but rather an important place. And in fact, the importance of this place is also related to Goliath being buried here next to it. And now we're going to move on and enter the church itself. Let's go. This church was rediscovered in 1985 and then excavated for the first time. And one of the most impressive things that was found at this site is its underground section, the church's crypt. And now we're going to go inside it together. Look how impressive this place is, everyone. And let me tell you what you could see in here. When the archaeologists arrived at this place, they simply found the space where a sarcophagus had been. And I'm not saying a sarcophagus, but rather the space where a sarcophagus had been. Because in 1985, when the archaeologists arrived here, the place was empty, but there was the mark of the sarcophagus. So we know that someone at some point was buried in here. But who was buried here? We have no idea. And we also don't know who took the sarcophagus from here or why. And now the question is this the tomb of Goliath? No, we know it's not. Although the space is big, the height of that space when we go inside from the floor to the top, it's 1 meter and 80 centimeters high, which is a lot for a funerary area. And 2.5 meters by 2.5 meters, I mean, it wouldn't be enough space to bury Goliath, probably, but the mark of the sarcophagus is the size of an average person, not a giant. So someone was buried here, but it wasn't Goliath. And now I want to show you the place. Come with me. You can see that no one has entered here for many years, and the place is filled with water, dirt, and stones. And because of that, we also can't see the whole crypt, and besides, it's really not a very pleasant place to be. And that doesn't help to solve the mystery of who was buried here in the past. And now, to find out where Goliath's tomb is, let's listen to what one of those ancient pilgrims wrote to us, Antoninus of Placentia. Goliath's resting place is right there in the middle of the road, and there's a pile of wood at its head. There is also a pile of stones, a mountain so big that there isn't a single pebble left for a distance of 20 miles. Because anyone who passes by makes a gesture of contempt, picking up 3 stones and throwing them at his tomb. We are by the side of the road, and now we have to look for a mound made mostly of small stones, because when we find it, we know we'll probably be in front of Goliath's tomb. Let's look for it. What we see is a small artificial hill. It is 7 meters high and 9 meters long. And the archaeologists who studied this area came to the conclusion that, without a doubt, this is an artificial mound. And also, looking at it, we can see that it is different from the surroundings. But not only is it different from the other hills, it is different from all the other tombs we know of in the Holy Land, especially from this period, the time of Goliath and King David. This mound is quite strange. Come closer. I want to show you how strange it is. If we look here, a large part of the mound is made of stone, or at least covered with stones. You can see here we're removing it and there are layers of stones underneath. And these stones are not natural to this place. If we look around, there are 1 or 2 stones, but this amount isn't found anywhere else. And there's a good chance these stones were thrown against this hill, just like Antonino told us. And not just him, other people also told us that when the pilgrims passed through here on their way, they would gather 3 stones. They looked for stones, more rounded pebbles, prettier stones, and also stones that remind them of David's story, because David threw rounded stones, pebbles at Goliath. So they would come, sorry everyone, they would come, throw them here onto the stones, and in this way the mound also grew over the centuries and millennia. This was a very well-known tradition during the Byzantine period. Many Christians would come here to visit this church. However, it was destroyed by a massive earthquake in the 8th century, and after that this place began to fall into oblivion, but not completely. Local people who lived here in the nearby cities kept this tradition alive, passing the story from father to son, from generation to generation, and saying that there in Khirbet, Hanut, is the hill where Goliath is buried. And in fact, there was another traveler who passed through here in the 19th century, a French explorer named Victor Guérin. And he was very famous in his time and visited this place in 1863 and described the Roman road, the ruins, and a huge pile of stones, which, according to tradition, was the tomb of the biblical giant Goliath. And he also tells of the tradition of pilgrims throwing 3 stones onto the pile of stones. What we have in this place is a very interesting and quite ancient tradition. But we can't be sure that the giant Goliath is really buried here. The only way to prove whether this really is the place or not would be through archaeological excavations. But there are no plans from the Israeli government to excavate here in the near future, and honestly, I think this place will never be excavated. Because there is a policy from the Israeli government, from the Ministry of Antiquities, not to excavate in places where it is known that there are tombs or where there is a high probability of there being graves. And that's why the chance of them coming to excavate here is really very small. So we don't know whether this is Goliath's tomb or not. What we can say does make a lot of historical and archaeological sense is that along this path here on the road behind us, Goliath's head was carried along here by David on the way to Jerusalem. Even though I don't know if Goliath is really here or not, or if the tradition of throwing stones is in the right place, just to be sure, I'm going to throw my stones here today too. And to help me, we have a very special guest.
Hi, sweetheart.
Everyone say shalom to my father.
Shalom, everyone. How are you? Look here, I brought the stones.
It's already prepared.
It's an age-old custom. Let's go.
Let's go. So you throw 2, I'll throw 1 here. So guys, just like pilgrims did in ancient times, we will do the same. So Goliath, here we go.
Take that, Goliath. 1 more, Goliath.
Well, folks, we don't know if we're in the right place, but there's a strong probability, a very strong historical tradition that says Goliath's body is here. And I hope you enjoyed today's video.
And everyone who enjoyed it, don't forget my usual request, right? Click the like button. Let's give some support to my daughter, Aline.
Thank you so much, Dad. Thank you so much to everyone who watched, and we'll see you next week.
Shalom, everyone.